So first we climbed a mountain. Now to get deep underground instead at the Yarangobilly Caves. The road in is infamously bad, and although not a four-wheel drive track, possibly should be. So I wanted to go on the sort of cave tour that takes you deep into a cave, crawling through a bunch of tight passages. Unfortunately, that sort of thing isn't offered at the moment, so we'll have to settle for a self-guided tour of South Glory Cave today, and then come back tomorrow for a guided tour of Jersey Cave. As we get into this part of the cave, known as the Ice Age due to its white walls, you'll notice it all looks a little bit green. No, I haven't failed at the colour grading. Unfortunately, from days gone by when this cave was lit up brightly for tourists, this encouraged algae growth in the damp conditions, so these days the cave is kept pretty dim. So if you want to get some video down here, an f1.4 lens is pretty useful. Some of the stalactites in this cave are actually not vertical. In fact, there's so much wind coming through this cave that the water gets shifted as it evaporates, causing them to grow at an angle. In some parts here as well, you can see some quite strong orange tint in the rock from the sheer amount of iron in it. There's some coral-like formations growing out of the walls as well. It's not really known exactly how or why these grow, but it's certainly not in any way related to marine coral. Unfortunately, in this part the white is also gone. So much usage of candles and kerosene lamps from tourist visits in days gone by has coated the ceiling in soot. Unfortunately, unlike the algae slowly dying off in the dimmer light, that's not going to undo itself. And then, after seeing all of that, it's up the final set of stairs and then out into the light. So I've got to come back for the second part tomorrow, which raises the question, where are we staying tonight? We didn't really plan this trip in advance, and everywhere's booked out. So at the visitor centre I was given a map with a bunch of places circled where camping was allowed, and a few more where it was more like nobody would care. But none of them were around here, or so I thought. Checking the website one last time when we had phone signal again, one spot had just become available. I jumped on it and paid my $6. Now just to head there and set up camp. It's a bit of a strange one. It's on a peninsula leading into the middle of a lake, and has no designated campsites in it. Here will do. But it sure is picturesque. So next morning, pack up camp and head back to Yarangobilly. Up the hill, find the rest of the tour group and head down into Jersey Cave. Jersey Cave is the star attraction here and has incredible and unusual formations, resembling sharp spikes or sheets of cloth. Some of the stalactites are hollow, and helictites are also present here, small spiky and incredibly fragile outgrowths that just grow in any direction and appear to defy gravity. The bones of two thylacines or Tasmanian tigers were also found in here, showing that at one point they were in this area. Except it's a bit of a mystery exactly how they got in here, because the first recorded entrant to this cave had to move a lot of rock in order to get here. Maybe it was always open, until a landslide or earthquake closed the entrance off. More weird sheets, almost resembling honeycomb in nature, and another forest of very spiky stalactites in this section. There used to be a passageway all the way to the top, but it was narrow, slippery and unsafe, and the cave doesn't go much further anyway. You just look down on it all from up there, only you can't see it because you're behind it. This was placed there in the late 1800s to redirect the water dripping on people's heads. Did it work? No, but it does show how slowly stalactites grow. This rock is layered, showing differences in mineral deposition over geological time as the composition of the atmosphere changed. By the way, that cave coral only grows underwater, so at some point this entire chamber was. And at this point, it's just up the stairs and out of the cave back the way we came. And then, after that, it was time to head on. It's almost striking quite how flat the sections that aren't hilly seem by comparison. We headed back to the historically significant Tom Grogan crossing that we scoped out earlier. In 1890, Jack Riley was the manager of Tom Grogan Station, hosting one Banjo Patterson in his hut, telling him of the experiences he had chasing wild horses. Patterson wrote the famous The Man from Snowy River, that although fictional, he freely admits was heavily based on Riley's exploits. Everything locked, unlocked or switched off as necessary?
All the orange lights?
Yeah. Now there's many tracks that lead into the Murray. Quite a few are on what is now private property. A few more have been closed due to their position causing severe erosion. But the crossing at Tom Grogan is the last remaining point where both sides remain and you can ford the Murray River, although we're doing it in a Toyota. Given the amount of recent rainfall, I was actually surprised this was shallow enough to cross.
Nothing coming in under the doors.
And here we are, the back way into Victoria. And we're on Tom Grogan Track in the Alpine National Park. So first, a quick trip down to Dogman's Hut. Built for and used by a wild dog trapper, it's one of the less visited high country huts, but a fair bit quieter than the New South Wales side of the river because this side requires a four-wheel drive to get to. From here, it was a seemingly endless hill climb, up towards Mount Pinavar, which we were somewhat interested in heading up to. It wasn't on the list of closed tracks, but then we got to this. Top line says danger, icons seem to imply not driving or riding it, but then the bottom line contains the word should. Is it allowed or not? So we left via the Tom Grogan track towards Mount Anderson instead. If things look good from there, we could always join the Mount Pinavar climb from here, closer to the top. Now the road actually seemed to be pretty good in this section, but don't you worry, it gets worse pretty soon. There was a pretty decent view from the top of Mount Anderson. Thing was, that same sign was up here too, but by this point we'd decided we didn't really have enough hours left in the day to head up there. We've got another campsite to get to. So we begin the steep descent down the other side of Mount Anderson. On the passenger side, I was pretty much standing up with my feet on the firewall. This was quite a steep descent, but certainly nothing the vehicle couldn't handle. The track to the right goes to Pinavar another way, but we turn onto Wheelers Creek Road. It's a single lane and relatively decent, with the exception of a couple of washouts.
Running here and I drive across.
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty?
I take it though you'll be crossing it on this side, not that side though.
I crossed it on this side, not that side.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do this side? We could
I-
use Max Tracks.
I prefer you didn't do that side.
I did somewhat regret using horizon leveling on the GoPro. With that mode enabled, the virtual camera can move around quite a bit more, looking way out of the corner when the car turns. And then, another bigger one.
Yeah, so it looks fairly straightforward that you just come up here and through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a steep.
Now, that looked pretty good from the inside, but from the outside something a little unplanned happened. Okay, that wasn't quite the planned line, but well, nothing got damaged. We then reached Wheelers Creek Camp and pulled into a campsite. Then, time to make dinner. Now, the law of campsite density was being a bit tricky here. It would have been rude to set up right next to anyone else before the campsite started filling up, but then once it had, we felt like we were taking up more space than average, but at that point it's way too late to pack up and move. But it turned out alright in the end, not that many more people turned up, and everyone still had a campsite to themselves. There was another hut at the campsite, but it wasn't like that kind of hut. It was significantly more modern. A lot of matches and a single card from everyone's favourite fun until all the combinations are memorised party game. We were now in position and ready for tomorrow, where we'll tackle Mount Bogong, the highest mountain in Victoria. But there's a bit of a four-wheel drive shortcut involved for us. Until then, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and see you next time.